Hello, everyone. I'm Candid, Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. A good one, I hope. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me as usual, David Morassutti of Sportsnet, Tip of the Tower. What other places can people find you? I always forget
Well,
to ask all the places that you're. I mean, the Players Association, the NHL Players Association. I don't know where you find time to be on this show,
I always make time for you, Frank. Always make time for you.
and I'm honored with that privilege. It's a privilege for me too. So the owner of Montreal guaranteed a victory. Didn't pan out, and boy, it didn't pan out in a real horrible way because they showed him in the box, and it was like what the heck just happened?
Um, they well, it's not only did he guarantee a win, he said that we're gonna kill him,
Yeah, no kidding.
right? Like, that and look, you're not kidding yourselves if the Argos didn't use that as some sort of bulletin material in the locker room. Some of them did. Some of them I know. We spoke to a couple of them about it going into the week, and they kind of said, yeah, no, that's good for him. The owner, it's a little different than it's a player, right? If it's another
Absolutely.
player doing it, it means a little bit more. But the owner, what do you want the owner to say? No, I think we're going to lose to these guys in heartbreaking fashion. No, he's going to say what he.
Ugh. I just think that by him saying that he put his neck out on the line, and hopefully he doesn't take it too personally. I'd like to think that he looks at it, looking back as, he's having fun, you know, being a part of the team and being a part of the game and, turning up the excitement level a little bit, right? And you know what? I applaud his energy, his enthusiasm, and his, basically his moxie. I like what he did. Uh, the CFL needs that kind of stuff. He wasn't doing it in a way that was berating the Argos. He was just saying, we're going to kick their butt, and we're going to do it good. It didn't work out that way. It's something to talk about. You and I can talk about it. And is there any doubt that he cares about his team?
No, and he's been getting a good following now on social media he's trying to get he's yeah so
Tagging onto the Rock.
exactly. I don't think there's ever been any doubt about his passion
Right.
for the Alouettes, but I think this at least gives the Alouettes fans at least some assurance that their owner is engaged. I think there's a difference
Absolutely.
between being a passionate owner but also an engaged owner. You
Yeah.
notice the markets right now that are sort of thriving a bit more. They've got a really engaged owner. I mean, we know about Mr. Young over at in Hamilton there.
Yep.
We know Amon over in BC with the Lions and what he's been able to do in just the short time he's been there. Now you have Gary Stern in Montreal.
Right.
Edmonton's trying to do that with their. He's technically not an owner, but he is a representative of the owners, and that's Victor. He actually followed me on Twitter. I thought that was a nice gesture on his part. I know that he's got many. He's following a lot of CFL people just to grow the CFL community. I think that's a nice little touch from him. But yeah, there are some markets that could really use a little more engagement from ownership and letting the fan base and the rest of the city know that the team means something to them. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. And I think there's, it's funny, a good segue from caretaker Bob, who bought the team and promised his brother that he would keep the team going and obviously go for a Grey Cup. We talked about the owner just now that made a promise, and let's not forget that his partner, I think it was Sidney Spiegel, wasn't it? He passed away after they bought the team. He never got a chance to be a
See,
part of that. So I think his enthusiasm may have his excessive, I'll call it excessive enthusiasm may have something to do with Spiegel's passing. And, I know they wanted to do it together, and I'm sure he wishes he was in the press box with him. So I can see it being a very emotional thing for the owner, of
Mhm.
Montreal. And I hope that his enthusiasm is maintained, and I hope the Montreal Alouettes can find a way to play respectably, because quite frankly, we need the Eastern teams to play respectably, especially the big cities being Toronto and Montreal. And then if we look over at BC, and you were talking about Bob, and look what the owner in BC is doing. The guy's, I don't know. To me, I feel like he got an inside straight. You know what I mean? Like he's done a masterful job, and there hasn't really been much time for him to accomplish all that he's accomplished. You got Cooey, the president in Edmonton, who has what appears to be a long-term plan. So these owners are trying, and I'm glad to see that, David.
No, I am. You know what? Like after what this league went through the last 2 years with the pandemic and a lot of the uncertainty about how invested owners are to keep this league going, we're starting to see that they're not just going to do it financially, but they realize if you're putting the investment into it, owning a sports team is different than any other business. You know,
And owning a CFL team is different than any other franchise. It's
right?
a whole different kettle of fish.
No, for sure. So I think when you look at what Gary has done, it's if you're an Alouettes fan, you gotta embrace it a little. You have to make sure you're embracing it, right? I'm hoping, he said today he spoke with the marketing ticketed team. They were not sold out, and he says we're gonna do some special promotions to try to sell this game out. Like we're gonna do what we can to make sure that this game is a sellout. We're not just gonna sit there and complain, no one wants to buy tickets. No, we have to figure out a way to push to make the market realize that this is something they should be coming to do. So I think it's a good thing for a team like Montreal, especially that's had at one point the league was running the team
Absolutely.
until Mr. Stern and Spiegel stepped up to purchase the team. So
Right.
for Montreal, if you're a Montreal Alouettes fan, you should feel sure your owner said something that put a bit of a target on your team on their team's back, but in the end, it brought some excitement. It also team almost delivered for him as well.
Yeah, how they didn't is amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean we got to see it live in person. It was a typical CFL game. I think that
It's a typical Argo game going back to last year. This is just the kickers are snake bit in Toronto, the visiting kickers. And even on the road, they had some good luck with poor kicking by the opposition. But to tie this in a bow, I don't want to have a long conversation about Larry Tannenbaum, the guy that runs MLSC. But even if you take what he said into context, it's the same thing. He cares about the league. He's concerned because there aren't enough young people that are interested in buying tickets and following the CFL. He's pointing out the truth, and he's also voicing an opinion that he has, that he looks at it differently than some of the community teams do. That's a reality you and I both have known. I've said this for 10 years, that it's must be hard for when the owners get together to agree on something, because they all have a different north star, and it's a bit of a Rubik's cube. And I guess, if he says that publicly, there's no doubt what Larry Tannenbaum said, and all the other owners and everybody that's stepping up and doing it their way. Hopefully, what my hope is that now they've all put themselves out there. The BC owner has done a great job. We have to say, okay, so he's got the right idea. Maybe I know what you're saying, Larry, and I know what you're saying, Mister Sorry. Anyway, or caretaker Bob. We know what you guys are saying, but this guy has something Can that work in other cities? Can that work in Toronto? So there has to be not only Larry Tannenbaum's opinion, but MLSC has to be seriously looking at the successes that are happening around them. And BC's a great example. And they need to look at that as a template and try to replicate that here in Toronto. That's what the CFL has to do. They have to look at each other, figure out the success pattern, and if it fits for every team, which it won't, we just got to figure out what team A, team B, team C, right? You got your MLSC, you've got your teams that are owned by an individual, and then you got your community teams. They all operate differently, but maybe they can find ones that operate like them that are having success and replicate that. They have to sort this out in the boardroom. They have to come up with a plan and they have to execute it and make sure it's a good plan. So, I'm happy with what BC's doing. I'm happy with the passion of the Montreal organization, and I'm happy with the honesty of MLSC Larry Tannenbaum.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can share this. I don't know if I have the ability to share this. Oh, it looks like I do. Um. Okay. I look at what. Oh, thank you to our lovely producer in the back.
Danny.
For Danny for doing this. Look at what Nate. I don't know if you can see this on the screen, Rank, but this is what Nate posted at the
Yeah, I
game.
saw it.
Right, having these kids on the field. I'll put up some of the pictures here. Like, this is what it's about. You're fostering some new fans, people coming to the community. It's going to the community to try to get these. We've missed a generation in Toronto. I really do think that, right?
Yeah, we did.
We didn't have the families going to the games and making that a tradition. A lot of the people who go to games right now, I can see that it's a lot of families who have been there together, people who have grown up watching the CFL with their families. So I think that's what the Argos missed out on, was not getting the families there for years. But I also just think reaching out to newer, you know, to some people, the CFL has a reputation that is going to be tough to sell them on. I get that, but you bring it to people who have never experienced it before, and they're going to say, you know what, this isn't half bad. Let's give it a shot. Let's go to a few more games.
And it's affordable. That's one of the things that they have to promote. The cost of going to a CFL game is not prohibitive, right? And live sports, professional live sports, with the kind of athletes that the Canadian Football League have, it's a real bargain. Now, to your point, to extend your point, not to make excuses, it's terrible to look back at, but what I want to remind people is that the Toronto Argonaut organization was on was owned by David Braley, a wonderful man who
Mhm.
financially supported the team. He did a marvelous job of salvaging this organization. It was as good as dead in the water, no pun intended. It was a sinking ship, pun intended. And they were lucky that David Braley came and financially supported the team. Now, I don't mean this as a criticism of David Braley, but the reality is that the team and the way the team was run ran into a lot of problems. We had the way the Argos left the Sky Dome, the way they were home games on the road. You talked about family, right? You're not going to pack your family and go to Guelph for a home game for the Argos. You're not going to go to Hamilton for a home game for the Argos. You're not going to go to Northern Alberta for a home game for the Argos if you have a family. And you're not going to take your family to Tuesday games. So all these things that the Argos fans had to put up with, and I, season ticket holder at that time, I experienced it firsthand as a season ticket holder, and it was frustrating, and it was, honestly, let's not BS here, it was a turnoff. And that turnoff is not MLSC's fault. As much as I'll criticize them, and I hope constructively, that they don't have the experience to not take successful leagues and have a franchise and sell tickets. This is different. This is they got to build something from scratch. A lot like the Marlies, right? Um, you know, TFC isn't the same as this because it's a big league with a lot of teams and a lot of money and a lot of hype that it had. So this is a different situation for MLSC, and it's frustrating to Larry Tannenbaum because he doesn't say that this organization and this league doesn't make enough money or doesn't have enough interest because he wants to be critical. It's because he's simply a businessman. And he's telling you straight up, what is the problem the way he sees it. I don't agree with him 100%, but I can't argue with him either.
No, I think you hit on the big one there. They took a team that, yes, that has been here for such a long time, but also a team that's had its struggles. When MLSC purchased the Leafs, they are already a powerhouse in the NHL.
Absolutely.
Everybody, they didn't have to do it. They wouldn't have to do anything to market the Leafs. People, it's already self markets itself. The Raptors needed a little bit of tinkering, but the
But they're
Raptors,
big league.
yeah,
Let's be honest. They're big league.
yeah. Even MLS when they had Toronto FC
Big
too.
league.
That's a big league. That when he said that they trade in the millions of dollars, he meant that there's a lot of money being exchanged with players, with TV contracts, with sponsorships. There's a reason why that these leagues are somewhat reputable, more reputable than unfortunately the CFL, which great community teams. A lot of these teams, but we're seeing kind of the impact in a place like Saskatchewan, even Edmonton, where the issues of relying too much on the community when the community themselves are saying to pay the money to spend $100 to fill up the car, to buy the tickets, to buy the food,
Challenges.
all those things. Argo games, if you are taking transit down, not easy. Yeah, the GO train line's right there. But for family, that's still a challenge. Okay, so if they want to take the GO train, how about they drive? Well, guess what? There's a $25
Parking.
charge to
Yep.
park your car.
The
There,
ticket's $30 and the parking's 25.
yeah, it
Just
almost costs
imagine.
you more to park than to watch the game.
The beer
Why
is $8. The beer is $8. The ticket is 30.
exactly? Like, where is the idea to try to entice families with value? I always say if you have a promotion, you're trying to say that there's some value in what you're buying. Unfortunately, people I don't think realize the value. Yeah, the tickets are cheap, but they think it's because it's an inferior product. It's not because this is
Oh, no,
decent value.
it's supply and demand.
Yeah,
The supply overruns the demand right now, so the ticket prices are what they are. I mean, every year, whether the Leafs win or lose, they raise the price of tickets. It's like clockwork, right? So, that's the advantage they have. But let's be clear here because I don't want this to sound like a negative conversation that we're having. What I am saying is that the Argos were run in a way that and ran into some bad luck where they were anti-promotion. Okay, when MLSC bought the team, they were anti-promoted team. So now MLSC had to go, and I hope they understood that. I know they've probably learned that they had to start below zero to get to zero to promote. And right now, you know, when they came in and the team was not promoted properly when they bought the team because Tuesday games, Guelph home games, all that stuff. That did not work well in promoting people coming to the game. Then you factor in losing 50 something at home, losing multiple games. It has not been an easy sell, because this team needs to be what Pinball said. And he's 100% right. It needs to be an organization that is competitive each and every year. And as it is competitive each and every year, while you do the promotion is a little more, it runs a little bit more on fuel, a little more on steroids when they're winning, right? Because people love to go to see their team win. Everybody loves a winner. And never mind the BS where people say, well, they should love the game no matter what. Forget it. You got to be competitive. When you don't have enough fans, if you want more fans, you got to be competitive. So far, under Pinball Clemens, the team is competitive. They haven't won a championship, but the team is competitive. They won their first game, and they're not going to have situations where we're being asked. The fans are being asked to have a home game in Guelph. We're going to have a home game in the eastern part of Canada, the Maritimes. That's a junket more than it is a desperation move to find a place for the Argos to play. That's a promotion thing in itself. So there's I see light at the end of the tunnel, given the opportunity that the organization figures out how to ensure people know the games are going on, and then when the team plays well, people talk about they're playing well. The Kelly thing, I find that's something that can that gets some interest.
Yeah, like you know what's funny? I don't know if you were able to listen to what Pinball Clemens said before kickoff. He did a little,
No, I didn't.
the normal Pinball Clemens, speech that makes you want to run through a wall.
Right.
Like, this is a person right here that I think is in the wrong position in terms of he should have been the president of the team, right? He has a good football mind. I'm not saying that he's has.
I think he is. I think he is ipso facto the president.
Yeah,
As
I
president.
just think that you have the best marketing tool right there. He was in a flashy white suit, but he makes every he there's no person that could ever say a bad thing about pinball, really. Not
Absolutely.
the person. And I think MLSC needs to, if they're looking for ways to market, he's got to be number one because everybody knows who Pinball Clemens is. The other is just, you know, this team is actually good, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely. A
that's the other
passionate coach that wants to win, players that have come home to play football, players that are very proud and unfortunately last year again, didn't end in a great way and it wasn't a promotable event the last game. In fact, it was something that again, you know, um but I just think that they can get past that. They can get past this stuff because of people like Pinball Clemens. And I want to say this about Bill Manning, who is the president.
Mhm.
He is not getting in the way of pinball. He doesn't. Manning isn't saying a word. He's not. It's not just about interfering. It's about not appearing to interfere as well, right? Perception
Yeah.
is reality, right? So, I don't see or hear anything from Manning like we heard from the ownership in Montreal that we're going to win or there's going to be changes. We're not hearing that kind of stuff coming out of the upper management of MLSC. We've heard what Larry Tannenbaum said. So I think the team is in good hands. I think the scheduling is going to be more promotable, if you will, than past years. The team is better than it's been in past years, the last couple of years. So, David, I think the Argos are in good shape. I think Montreal's in good shape, and I am so proud of what they did, what they've done in BC. I am so proud of that. The one that concerns me more than any other in the Canadian Football League is Edmonton. And Victor Cooey seems to be a guy that has a plan, and he just, he needs time to act on that plan. And Edmonton's, I just don't see Chris Jones's team not competing for a playoff this year.
No, for sure. And yeah, it's always and the thing that I was a little bit worried about in that Argos home. I mean, we're going to talk about the game, but that first half was anything but the
Well,
CFL.
let's go with the game because that was the first game of the week. And they found themselves against Montreal. And I gotta say, I enjoyed the game. It was a great game to watch, but more importantly, it did go from being something that was, oh my God, come on, man, let's see some offense. You know, Macbeth is getting a lot of pressure. A lot of fans are catcalling him from the stands. I'm hoping that he has a breakthrough game, and hopefully it'll be in BC. He needs a breakthrough game because the pressure from the fans is clear. I mean, they're yelling their displeasure with Macbeth, and I'm proud of the fact that he seems to handle it pretty well. It's not easy, man. It's not easy to keep the fans happy because they can be critical to an extent that is, let's face it, unfair.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched that game, he made some brutal mistakes. I mean, he would agree with that as well. I think part of it is he kind of gets in his head a little bit too. Like it's almost like some of the mistakes are kind of self inflicted, and that's I think where the frustration comes in. But at the same time, he still led them to a victory, right?
Yeah.
It might not have been pretty, uh, but a win is also still a win if you're of that belief, right? And so, you know, the Argos have gone through some pretty tough seasons, some pretty bad quarterbacks on the roster. But
That's
yeah,
true.
McLeod Bethel Thompson is not in that frame of mind. I think it's for him, the talent's always been there. It's the mentality. Can he mentally remain focused and avoid those mental blunders that frustrate a lot of fans? Like I understand the frustration fans have, but you have to back your quarterback a little bit. You have to show him you have some confidence in him because the last thing you want is to have his confidence shaken, and that's the reason why he's not successful. But I think he's over the years he has shown that he has grown a little bit stronger.
Statistically, he's been awesome every year.
Yeah,
Statistically, he's been awesome. The stat that every week I'll remind folks, and the stat that I consider with quarterbacks is the touchdown to interception ratio. That to me is in the CFL is a clear indication of how, there used to be a time when a quarterback would get 3, 4 touchdowns in a game. We're not living in that CFL right now. So now what happens with the CFL is that you get a great quarterback like Claros. He throws 2 touchdowns and an interception. That's a good day for a quarterback in the Canadian Football League today. If you look, Trevor Harris, no TDs and interception. He's a great quarterback. He looked great. He had some issues with players that couldn't hang on to the ball, and they weren't questionable passes. They were great passes that they didn't hang on to. So when it comes to Macbeth, he's suffering from the same thing. It seems too many quarterbacks are suffering from in the Canadian Football League is they're stuck on in this situation where they're not they're not as productive as they should be, can be, and the CFL league needs them to be. And they've tried so far. We haven't seen the new rules really help them the way we all hoped it would, right? Or
yeah.
they would.
No, and we have seen a lot. I mean, after what happened last week, I mean, still some very close games, but we only had one game where a team went over 30 points, and funny enough, both teams went over 30 points, and it was actually the
Again,
most entertaining game of the week, in my opinion. But when I look at this Argos Alouettes game, this was really teams the mistakes the teams made themselves that cost them because there were the interceptions that were thrown, the inability to really get much going in the red zone, right? Like both teams struggled in that area. Montreal making the quarterback change in the second quarter, like
yeah,
that was shocking to a lot of people, and so I'm I think that it's going to take time. I mean, look, that was the Argos' first game of the season.
that's right.
Montreal is without their best offensive player, was without their best offensive player, William Stanback. So I think I give a little bit of a pass to the Argos in this first game.
It
It's
was their first game,
yeah,
and as far as that's concerned, and we saw Andrew Harris. He ran for 87 yards. He looked good. A little tweak of an injury that the coach said he could have played, but we figured no, we'd rather make sure that he can play the whole season. Let's not push him where we don't need to. And so he basically was, health management issues, right? Is basically what they did there. And it sounds like he might come back to play in the next game, but we'll see. We'll see what the injury reports are before the game. So, Harris and Brandon Banks got his first touchdown as a Toronto Argonaut. So, he did what he needs to do.
Yeah, no, it was. I think that was probably the most entertaining part of that game. Seeing Brandon Banks look a little more like Brandon Banks, right after all that, all the issues that they went through, where they
Yep.
just could not really. We tried to figure what was wrong with Brandon Banks. I don't think anything was really wrong with them. It was more so he just needed a team to be confident in him.
Absolutely.
I think there was a lack of confidence with him. I mean, I still think the best offensive player on that Argos team, if you watched that game, was Andrew Harris.
Yeah.
All that talk about concern. I mean, he did not finish the game. I understand that he had that injury. Well, not
A
injury; it
tweak.
was his
A
hamstring,
tweak.
the tweak. But that player alone is worth the price of admission. To watch what he
Absolutely.
did
Absolutely. And he
was
was very enthusiastic. The other players that did well for the Argos, Markeith Ambles, and of course, Junior Gittins. Boy, oh boy, he looks good. He looks good. But the best player on that evening, I think, was Eugene Lewis. On his own, he could have carried Montreal to victory. Just a little, you know, he couldn't do it on his own. And then Reggie White, my goodness, two
Mhm.
great receivers, and they worked well with Trevor Harris coming in late.
I was very impressed with Eugene Lewis because there were times where the Argos just had no answer for how
No
to
kidding.
how to contain him, right? And so, yeah, I did like. I mean, Eugene Lewis continues to be, I think,
Amazing.
top three receiver in the CFL. Some might find
Absolutely.
that a bit bold, but I think he's been that good.
Well, he's the reason why Cunningham's not in Montreal anymore. He's
Exactly.
he is the go-to guy, and he's earned it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, Reggie White looked pretty good. Jake Winneke, a little
Oh,
disappointed.
I know. Mind you, he could be, it could be the way that he's being defended, but the big thing with every great athlete is that their greatness brings a lot of attention towards them, and they got to find another gear. They got to find another way to succeed. And sometimes they don't, and it takes time, and in this case, might be what it is with Jake Winneke, because last year he was making receptions that were quite frankly, highlight reel receptions, and you'd expect that to continue, right? But defense does deserve some credit.
Yes. I mean, Toronto's defense, I knew they were going to be pretty good. Um, Health I think, was always going to be the thing with them, right? Can they remain healthy? There's guys like a Shane Ray who was just in and out of the lineup a little too much with his injuries. He was like, that was really the first time I really saw the Shane Ray I think that the Argos were hoping for when they signed him. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, injury. Even Montreal's defense, they stood in tough, right? The interceptions they had, they don't
When
get
it
the
mattered. When it mattered.
when they don't if they don't make those plays. I think the Argos would have been cruising to a win.
And we'd be talking about McLeod, Bethel Thompson having a great game and scoring, throwing a couple of touchdowns. Didn't happen because of the defense. It's not only on McLeod. Again, we love to see offense, but we must respect defense. Yeah, so the Argos win 20-19. I guess we could say a well-deserved victory.
Mhm.
That it ended with a missed field goal for a point, a rouge, which brought the game to a 1-point difference. Let's move on to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Ottawa Red Blacks. The Ottawa Red Blacks, we bragged on them all off season. Tough break for them as they got to play the defending Grey Cup champions, the back-to-back Grey Cup champions, the first 2 weeks. So Ottawa Red Black fans, be a little easy on your team because um, that's a pretty interesting start to their season. But hopefully, it'll iron against iron. You know, it might
Ye-
toughen them up, make them really good.
this game was like, you want to talk about tough. Poor
Absolutely.
Jeremiah Mazzoli took some shots
Jeez,
in this game.
331 yards, 71%, 27 to 38. No TDs, but no interceptions either. You know how I feel about interceptions. So, great work on his part. Just it didn't show up on the scoreboard enough.
No, it didn't. And man, like that's a tough loss for 2 straight weeks in a row where I feel like, you know what, they were in it, right? They were in
They
it,
were.
and like that's a good sign if you're Ottawa, right? Yeah, you lost your own 2 to start the season, but that's not an 0-2 I feel like you should be ashamed about. That's an 0-2. It's just like we just lost to a very good football team that just we just couldn't find a way. We just couldn't find a way to make those plays. It really came down to just you find a way to get one touchdown,
And that was it. It
right?
was 13-12 at the end of the third quarter. Winnipeg. Then they got the only points of the fourth quarter, giving them the 19 to 7 point lead. So you're 100% right. I like what Ottawa's doing, and I love Jeremiah Mazzoli. I love what he's doing. Just again in the CFL, I don't understand it. A lot of great marching down the field, but the CFL quarterbacks are having a difficulty when they get into the red zone.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. Uh, the league is trying to help them out to get them to score some points. No offense to the defenses, but again, the saying is that offense sells tickets, defenses win championships, and the league wants to sell some tickets. Score some points, boys.
Yeah, I also just wonder how much of this is also Paul Police getting a bit outcoached by his former team, right?
Well, absolutely. It's defense again, right? I mean, Winnipeg is a team that knows how to win. They're coached by one of the best defenders in CFL history, who's turning out to being one of the greatest coaches in CFL history. He's a genius. He's a marvelous coach, and he's a player's coach, and you know, it, you're in tough. I mean, Zach Caleros is, um, I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's underrated. Can you believe I just said that? I think he's underrated. I think the Bomber team gets a lot of credit. He
Mm-hmm.
threw 2 TDs and an interception.
He,
Again, two
yeah,
TDs.
right. He didn't have the 300 yards, but he had the 2 touchdowns,
Absolutely.
right? It makes it a little easier knowing that Winnipeg just knows how to get themselves into those positions to give a shorter field, right? You know, I felt like where I was going with the La Police stuff too is that there were opportunities where they make a big play and then some questionable play calls where down in a position to threaten to score that you just can't give it Winnipeg an easy out. I feel
No.
like they did that on occasion there. But yeah, no,
Some
I
two and
think
outs. Absolutely.
but I think with Caleros, I think you're totally right. He just needed to find that team that was going to embrace just him as a quarterback, right? I feel like teams are always looking at the health concerns and yes, there's some red flags there, but they're also just like, what can we do to make sure that our quarterback doesn't get hurt? What can we do to put him in a position to succeed? I think Winnipeg has found that for Zach Caleros.
Absolutely. And he wants no more than to show what he can do and stop being, from his perspective, if I were him, uh, what I'd be thinking is, you folks don't get it. What happened to me before has nothing to do with my future. That was my past, and some of the stuff that you think was my concussion issues were not concussion issues. They were neck issues. He's said this to me in when I've interviewed him, that's what it was. People misunderstand or misunderstood his health concerns, and so he came out. Oh, the spotter said he's got to come out of the game, so he came out of the last game, forcing their backup quarterback to be the hero, and good for him. But here he is the next game, looking as good as he's been, and they're doing it. And I got to say, part of the reason why I respect Zach Collaros is the running game isn't the same without Harris.
No, it's not. They can't control the line of scrimmage without him. They can't, in the fourth quarter where they need to just hold the lead, give the ball to Andrew Harris. He'll just wear down the defense and chew up the game clock. They don't have that anymore. And when you have a guy like Andrew Harris, the other running backs can kind of fly under the radar a little bit. Unfortunately, when you don't have Andrew Harris, we saw it in Toronto where the backup Udobuye, he thrived because Andrew Harris was in the game. The other teams, when they see an Andrew Harris, they keen on him, but then when the other guy gets in, it's almost like, all right, we don't
Now what?
really. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what Winnipeg is dealing with right now. They got two unfortunately unproven guys. They're gonna have to
But
figure
they're
it
a
out.
team that can handle it, though, David. They've
Oh yeah,
got so many strengths and so many. I mean, they had the twin animals on defense. Boy, oh boy, the twin threat. I mean, nobody has a pass rush like Winnipeg. You know, uh,
no.
Jeremiah Mazzoli, what he did to me, in my mind, again, I repeat, I was very impressed by what he accomplished with those two guys back in the lineup together. Jefferson is one of the best defenders in the Canadian Football League. One of the very best. He's one of the very best that has played in the Canadian Football League. So, to accomplish what Mazzoli accomplished with those two guys hunting him down, he's done a great job. And I'm telling you, David, these two games that Ottawa played, look out, because if the opposition doesn't play as well as Winnipeg does, Ottawa's going to do fine. Ottawa's going to do great. I still think they're a lock for the playoffs. I really do think they're a lock for the playoffs in my mind. And that means that one of Toronto, Montreal, or Hamilton is not going to make the playoffs.
Well, do we want to go into the next game? Because one of the teams I'm a
Absolutely.
little concerned about, the Hamilton
Absolutely.
Tiger Cats.
And we should be concerned about the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but I'll preface it for our Hamilton Tiger Cat fans and repeat again that they lost their first two games last year and they went to the Grey Cup. Carry on.
They also had a 24-3 lead, and then did not have a 24-3 lead and lost in overtime.
Yep.
That's a tough one after you go through the first week where they didn't look that great against Saskatchewan. Like, that's a team that you're gonna might have to play in the Grey Cup if you get there.
Yeah,
right?
that's who you got to beat.
That's who you have to beat. And they let Calgary get right back into that game.
Oh my.
Like, man, Bo Levi Mitchell was just savoring that game because we know what everybody's been saying about him. And look, I don't think Bo Levi Mitchell is the same player he was before. I think Bo Levi
course
Mitchell
not.
would agree with that. But you do not give Bo Levi Mitchell the belief that he can put the team on his back and get them back in the game. And that's exactly what Hamilton did.
Yeah, or even just invite him to have an opportunity to win the game. He doesn't even have to. That's the beauty of Calgary and their defense, and they're so well coached and they're so well put together as a team that Bo Levi Mitchell, they know for the past couple of years they haven't been able to rely on Bo Levi Mitchell, David, and I think they built a team that basically says, Bo Levi, you just have to be a good quarterback. It's like what we were talking about with Collaros. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The greatness level isn't that important because in the CFL, defenses are dominating, and Calgary's been over the years one of the best defenses. So don't be surprised that they're dominating. They made Hamilton's offense and their quarterback look a little bit ordinary and then invisible as the game progressed.
Second, I mean, you bring up the interception stats all the time.
Well, go ahead, go for it.
Two straight games where Dane Evans had 2 interceptions.
He had 3 TDs, so three to
He
that.
looked incredible in that first half.
I
He was
know
finding guys easily. Like there was the one, I believe it was on Dunbar, where he just
425 yards, David.
he waltzed into the
425 yards.
yeah, but there was a chance. I think third quarter, Dane Evans had a shot in the end zone and it gets intercepted. Like, despite as the stats looked really good for Dane Evans until you realize
Oh
the
boy.
interception he threw in the second half was in the end zone. His second interception of the game came in overtime, eerily similar to a Grey Cup play that kind of
Yep.
lost it in Hamilton. Like, I think, and I heard that Dane Evans is dealing with a bit of a knee injury right now, so that's a bit of a yikes for Hamilton
He's
there.
probably not playing because he's on the injury report. As you know,
Yeah,
they didn't say he wasn't. It's just early reports on the injury. And the biggest problem with Hamilton, and I think Hamilton fans know it as good as anybody, is their running game. When your quarterback who threw for 425 yards also leads in rushing, and he rushed for 22 yards, and Sean Thomas Erlington ran for 18 in the game. I think we know what the problem is with Hamilton. They lack a running game.
I,
And
yeah. No, I think it's always I mean, Don Jackson being hurt does not help uh,
no,
as well.
but you can't. You got to have in the CFL and in football, period, next man up mentality.
Not only that, I also think their offensive line, that was something that they never really addressed. I think to the level that they needed to.
Okay.
You know, they I said in 2019 that the offensive line was outclassed by Winnipeg in that Grey Cup,
Yes, it was.
and they didn't really do much to help in that regard. They'll figure it out. I really do think that, but it's gotta come soon.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, yeah, you can be down 0-2, but eventually Ottawa's gonna start to pick up a couple wins.
Yep.
Montreal, it's really I really do think, in my opinion, it's gonna come down to Hamilton and Montreal. Which one of those two teams really wants to make the playoffs?
I can't argue with you, and it's not because we cover the Argos, but if yeah, I got to say that
Not
with
only that,
Hamilton,
Frank, the crossover.
yeah, that's I
I
spent
think
this
there's
off
4 teams in the
season talking about a crossover that's not going to happen. Almost guaranteed that there wouldn't be a crossover in
I
the
think
East.
there's 4 teams in the West that can make the playoffs.
Well, it's starting
Saskatchewan.
to look well early. BC has really created an issue now in
Yeah.
the West, right? The arms race now, literally and figuratively, has been heightened by two Canadian quarterbacks in BC, which were supposed to be two quarterbacks that were, they were going to work their way into proving that they were viable professional quarterbacks, that could play in the CFL. Well, that's not what we saw, and the Argos are going to BC this week. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the Argo defense deals with probably one of the best Canadian quarterbacks. It looks to me, and I don't think it's hard to tell that there's a lot of, there's a lot of characteristics that make we're seeing history. I think. Anyway, back to the game that we were talking about. Hamilton's running game. They need Don Jackson to get healthy, or they have to get another option because if Sean Thomas Erlington cannot run for more than 22 yards or 18 yards, sorry, Hamilton's going to have a hard time winning because Dane Evans can't be their leading rusher too.
And he can't be forced to throw the ball 51 times in a game.
My word. Oh my goodness. Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. That's the problem. That predictability in football is next to death, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's an issue for them.
Well, hopefully Hamilton will work that out. They lose to Calgary 33-30 after being ahead 24-0, 24-3 at the half. Calgary, they dissected Hamilton. It was an amazing thing to watch. Another game that was amazing to watch, the Edmonton Elks home to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They lost 26-16. We got to see Arbuckle. What did you think?
I mean, I will say this better than the game of the week one. Personally, I'm seeing a Nick Arbuckle right now that seems a bit indecisive at times. Feels like
Especially, remember how he had a hard time throwing a pass early in the game. He went
yeah,
almost to halftime, didn't he? Before he,
he was rushing. I felt like he was rushing plays. He was missing reads a little bit. But what I did see is I saw him and Kenny Lawler were
yeah,
establishing. They're establishing a connection right now, some chemistry. It's very important. Also, Emmanuel Arsenault, still a
yes,
very good receiver. I'm not worried about them. I think
and
they're
a
going to
real
be.
edge to his game too.
This is a totally new team, right? They're going to take
Yeah,
some time to get going here, and they're getting going up, against the Saskatchewan team that they have a running game, very good running game. Cody Fajardo does not have to rush the ball as much anymore.
nope.
I think that took some pressure off of Cody Fajardo. But if I'm Edmonton, it's better, but obviously it's still a loss. So it's hard to you get the moral victories, but it's also we want to start winning games too.
They also had the Morrow victories, 126 yards, a great evening of rushing for a running back. Um, it's great that when you have a running game and Fajardo can run too, that's a lot of options that keeps the defense honest.
For sure. I mean, and not only that, they got guys like Shaq Evans can still make plays for them. That's key for them. And Brett Lawhurst still making kicks. Very important for them. I just think Saskatchewan's defense remains cream of the crop in the West. I
Yeah,
think,
the DB, the best group of DBs in the league.
yeah, like Winnipeg has the best pass rush. Saskatchewan has the best backfield.
Yeah, they do. They're awesome. And you know what? Shake and Bake is looking good too. Schaefer
Yeah,
Baker.
yep. He's still there's still some growth that has to happen there, but I do think they do have something there. It's going to take time for him to really to establish himself as the guy when he doesn't really right now he's not counted on to be the guy. But I'll say this about for Edmonton, the offense is not bad. It just needs work. And it needs Nick Arbuckle needs to be shown a little more give him some confidence. Let him work through the kinks. I think he'll get there. It's just going to take time. But Saskatchewan, they look right now. Them and Winnipeg they just look real unstoppable right now. How they play
Fact,
both sides.
Kenny Lawler caught 149 yards of passes.
And
So
he made, I
to your
think, the
point,
nicest. He's already got touchdown of the year right now on that touchdown catch.
absolutely. Love what he's doing. Some real good excitement in the Canadian Football League. Offense is on the cusp. And, coming out of the season, I want to remind folks before they get all, excited that there's not that much scoring. It takes a little longer for offenses to get into gear than it does defenses. So early in the season, defenses will have the advantage. But trust me, folks, once we get to the point where we end up a couple of weeks down the road, whether it be Labor Day, we'll start seeing some of these offenses do what they can do.
Yeah, no, I think it's always going to be like that. That's why, and especially teams that made a lot of changes or teams that had said they had some injuries to deal with during training camp. Well, players are not held. Players are still getting themselves back into a routine a little bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, David, thanks for this.
No problem,
We
Frankie.
look forward to another great weekend of games. We hope you enjoyed the program, and I know I'm looking forward to the games this week. The CFL. Right now, defenses are ruling, but trust me, offenses will come along. For David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.